I was grabbing a lollipop from the bowl on the bank counter when a man burst through the doors with a gun. "Everybody down!" he screamed, waving his gun at everyone. I panicked and dove behind the teller counter, but my mom was in the lobby, dropping to her knees with the other customers. She called my name, searching for me, but he yelled, "Everyone shut the hell up and let me get my money. Nobody leaves until I do." I pressed myself against the counter, my heart slamming because my mom is all I have, and I had to do something before he hurt her. Police sirens wailed in the distance, and the robber's head snapped toward the window. "Crap, let's do this quick," he screamed. He shoved his gun at the teller, who was only 10 feet away from me. The teller threw his hands up, then fumbled the drawer open and stuffed cash into the bag, crying. I stayed frozen behind the counter, my whole body shaking, watching my mom out in the lobby shaking. Then I saw it, a red lockdown button on the wall, the kind that seals the whole bank and could stop him. But when I reached for it, I saw the keypad beside it. It needed a code, and I didn't know it. I was so close to saving her, and I still couldn't do anything. Then the sirens grew louder, and the robber panicked. My mom kept screaming my name, so he stormed over and yanked her up by the arm. "Shut up, you're coming with me." He pressed the gun to her head and dragged her toward the doors. And I knew if he walked out that door with her, I'd never see her again. The robber was one step from the doors, my mom locked against his chest, her feet dragging. I was guessing codes frantically, but they all were wrong. Then the teller beside me, hands still up, whispered, 4729. My fingers shook as I punched it in, one number at a time, while the robber's hand hit the doorknob. The second he pushed it open, the lockdown slammed every door shut, trapping him inside. He spun around, wild-eyed, searching for who did it, but he never once looked behind the counter. The police swarmed in and tackled him as my mom broke free. I ran to her, the lollipop still in my hand, and buried myself in her arms. My uncle had spent 20 years hunting Bigfoot, and the first night I went with him, something barefoot walked through our campsite. At sunrise, we found a print beside the open cooler, almost twice the size of my boot, and pressed deep into the mud with 5 clear toes. 3 sausages were gone, and crushed ferns led uphill. My uncle dropped beside the print with his hands shaking. "Do you understand what this means?" A branch snapped above us, and something huge moved between the trees, so he grabbed his camera and whispered, "This is the night everyone stops laughing." We followed the tracks until they ended beside a tree with dark hair caught in the bark, and while my uncle sealed it in an evidence bag, something grunted deeper in the woods. That afternoon we found split firewood stacked beside a creek, and even though the cuts were too clean for an animal, he insisted Bigfoot had learned tools. Then our food vanished. First the sausages, then the marshmallows, then an entire jar of peanut butter with the lid screwed neatly back on. That night, heavy footsteps circled the tent while my uncle aimed his camera at the zipper, and I held the bear spray against my chest. A huge shadow crossed the nylon, paused beside the fire, then moved away until the footsteps disappeared completely. My uncle lowered the camera, his face collapsing. 20 years, and I missed him. Then a metal spoon scraped the bottom of our peanut butter jar outside. The shadow rose again, wider than the tent door, and my uncle lunged for the zipper. "We've got him." He burst outside with the camera flashing, and the creature screamed. Not roared, screamed. My legs locked as a huge shirtless man spun around beside the fire holding our peanut butter sandal. "What is wrong with you people?" he yelled, covering himself while my uncle kept taking pictures. Behind him sat a normal campsite with a hammock, coffee pot, folding chair, and paperback face down on a stump. The footprints were his, the hair was his, and the grunting was him chopping wood. My uncle lowered the camera. "You're not Bigfoot?" The man stared at him. "I'm Gary." He pointed to a sign nailed to a tree. "Private campsite. Please leave Gary alone." The fear drained out of me so fast, I had to bite my cheek to keep from laughing. Gary screwed the lid onto our peanut butter and disappeared into the woods muttering, "Every single summer." I was riding the elevator up to my apartment when it jolted and stopped between the 6th and 7th floor. The elevator cables groaned. My heart stopped because I'm a mechanic and knew that sound. One wrong move and the cables would snap and we'd drop all the way down. I reached for my phone to call for help, but my phone was dead. But I wasn't alone. A kid was next to me. He grabbed his phone and immediately pulled it up, smiling. "Chat, I'm stuck in an elevator. Tune in and drop a galaxy." He was live on TikTok. "Kid, don't move. This thing could fall and kill us." But he wasn't listening to me. He was reading his comments. The comments were going crazy. "You won't jump. Jump and I'll send a galaxy." The kid smiled ear to ear. "I won't jump. Bet." I screamed, "No, don't." But before I could grab him, he jumped and the whole elevator dropped a foot with a violent screech. We both slammed against the wall. His live was gaining more viewers. I knew I had to do something, and my years as a mechanic kicked in. We were stuck between floors, so I pried the doors open to climb down to the floor below. But the second I leaned into the gap, the car slipped lower and a cable snapped above us. Now just a few cables left. The kid pointed his phone at me, laughing. "Chat, this unk is trying to kill us." The comments flooded in, calling me a loser. Then the kid, trying to impress them, jumped up and grabbed the ceiling hatch. "Guys, watch this." He was trying to climb it, but as he pulled himself up, the elevator dropped again. We were hanging by a thread now, seconds from falling. I was convinced my death was going to be recorded on this random kid's live. I grabbed the kid and braced for the fall. Then out of nowhere, banging above us, "Fire department, hold on!" They pulled us up through the hatch just as the last cable snapped and the elevator crashed to the bottom. I was on the verge of tears. "How did you know we were stuck?" The firefighter pointed at the kid's phone. One of his viewers saw the live, recognized the building and called us. "You'd be dead if he wasn't streaming." I turned to the kid, expecting him to be shaken that he almost died. But instead, he said, "Chat, if you want more content, send a galaxy." I was watching LeBron highlights when I turned to my girlfriend and told her I wanted a LeBaby. She looked up from her phone. "A what?" "A LeBaby. The next LeBron. Someone has to carry the torch. Doesn't he have his own kids? They couldn't hold it. Not like him." I grabbed her hands. "Babe, I need you to see my vision." She finally nodded. That evening, I turned the guest room into a nursery, purple and gold, and ordered a newborn Lakers jersey with Braun on the back. I was committed to spawning greatness. That week, she signed up for yoga to strengthen her core for the LeBaby and started going almost every day. One afternoon, I swung by and caught her giggling at something her trainer Tyrone said. The second she saw me, she scrambled up and hugged me. "I'm pregnant, baby." I was so happy I cried for an hour, then walked over and thanked Tyrone for helping us get pregnant. My girlfriend just smiled. "He's really good at stretching me." I told him to book her extra sessions, so my LeBaby got the best treatment. 9 months later, I was in the delivery room, Lakers headband on, LeBron's hype speech on the TV while she pushed, tearing up before he came out. The doctor laid him on her chest, and her whole face crumpled. She yanked the blanket to his chin, eyes shooting to the door. I leaned in, froze, and held my pale arm against his. The colors weren't close. I looked at her, just as white, then back. We were both white. He was not. She opened her mouth, but I raised a hand, my face cracking from confusion into a grin as I hopped in place. I see it now. She went pale, but I was already on my knees, hands to the ceiling. The Lee Divine heard me. I prayed for a LeBaby, and he sent me a LeBaby. I scooped him up like the championship trophy and held him to the light. "Welcome to the world, Braun." My girlfriend exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for 9 months. But that's just what spawning greatness takes out of you. I shot up out of bed the second I heard glass shattering, grabbed my trusty bat from underneath, and flew down the stairs before I could think. A shattered vase was spread across the floor, and my dog's crate sat wide open, empty. I called Biscuit's name through the whole house and got nothing back. Then I spotted a cracked phone glowing in the broken glass, dropped by whoever knocked the vase over running out. The screen had one message on it: "Bring the Frenchie to the warehouse on Lowell by 6. I jumped up and down in my kitchen. This is sick. This is literally John Wick. So I tossed the bat aside, dropped onto the couch, and watched the whole movie again to pump myself up. Then I threw on my only suit and tie, slid on a pair of blacked out shades, and spun a pencil once before holstering it in my jacket like a gun. They have no idea who they just messed with. Every last one of them is about to face my wrath. I pushed through the warehouse door, and the first guy charged me, so I threw the hardest punch of my life, missed, and hit the wall behind him. While I shook out my hand, he wound up to swing, so I flinched and tripped into a stack of pallets. They toppled onto his head and knocked him out cold. I cracked my neck like I'd meant to do that. Another guy pulled a gun, but right as he aimed, my cheap suit pants split down the back. I bent down to check just as he fired, so the bullet sailed over my head, pinged off a metal pole, and ricocheted back into him. He crumpled to the floor crying. I followed the barking to a cage in the back, guarded by the biggest man I'd ever seen. He lifted me off the floor by my collar while my legs kicked at nothing, but Biscuit shoved his squeaky bone through the bars. The giant stepped back onto it, and 400 pounds came down on his own head. I grabbed Biscuit and held him tight. Then the boss rounded the corner with a gun, so I panicked and threw my pencil as hard as I could, just like the movie. It missed by a mile, clipped a propane tank, and the blast sent him through the window into the night sky like a rocket. The place caught fire, so I carried Biscuit out, and the second we cleared the door, the warehouse exploded behind us, and I never looked back. I didn't land a single punch in there, but when people ask how one guy leveled a warehouse and got his dog back, I fix my tie and say I trained for it. The judge banged his gavel and gave me custody of my daughter, and I jumped in the air because I hadn't seen her in 12 months. That night, I made her favorite soup, and after eating looked at me with her giant sparkling eyes. "Can we go on a late night drive like we used to?" I hesitated because I'd lost my license, and if I was caught, I'd be going to jail. But when I looked into her hopeful eyes, I couldn't say no. We got in the car and took off, and I kept my head on a swivel looking for cops. But then I saw something that made me stop. She'd snuck a second bowl of soup in the back seat. "You're gonna spill it," I laughed, but she took a tiny spoonful and promised she wouldn't. I kept driving while she beamed with her soup, and a smile formed on my face. I was so lost in the moment, I didn't even notice my foot drifting on the accelerator. Red and blue lights flashed across my car. I glanced at my speedometer and saw I was going 80 and a 50, and my legs trembled on the brakes as I rolled to a stop. Crap, I'm going to jail. I gripped my head terrified, because jail meant losing my daughter again. I turned around and saw her drop her spoon into her soup out of fear. "Did you say jail, Daddy? I won't get to see you again?" Her lip quivered, and I saw the cop step out of his car. I tried frantically frantically to think of a way out, when suddenly I smelt it. My daughter was tipping her bowl of soup onto my dashboard. Soggy carrots and broccoli ran all over my console. I gripped my head. "What are you doing?" But she cut me off. "Tell him I threw up." She curled into a ball in the back seat, and suddenly I heard knuckles on my window. I rolled my window down and faced the officer, pale with fear. But then my daughter groaned from the back. "Are we at the hospital yet, Daddy? It hurts so bad." She was clutching her stomach, and I instantly realized what she was doing. I told the officer, "My daughter's got appendicitis, sir. She just threw up. That's why I was speeding." The cop saw the spilled soup that looked like vomit and immediately nodded. "I'm so sorry, sir. Please keep driving." I pulled away, and my daughter instantly sat up, grinning with her empty bowl. I would have gone to jail if she didn't spill that soup, and getting custody this morning would have meant nothing. But now I got to keep being her dad. The fat kid next door pounded on my door. "Have you seen my chocolate bar?" I opened up and he was already red in the face, jabbing a finger at my chest. "My Hershey's cookies and cream bar. The big white one. Someone ate it." I shrugged. "I haven't seen it." He immediately spun around and roared down the whole street. "Whoever ate my chocolate is dead. You hear me? Dead." Everyone on the street froze because we all knew whoever ate it was screwed. He crossed his arms. "Fine, I'll just have to find the criminal myself." He stormed into his house and came back outside with a remote-controlled drone and a roll of duct tape. More people gathered to watch as he started taping himself to the drone. "Whoever took it better watch out. I'm coming for you." In seconds, he launched himself into the air, scanning every backyard and screaming that the thief couldn't hide from him. Doors opened all down the street and people ran out waving their own chocolate bars up at him, trying to talk him down. Someone held up a fresh Hershey's and he swatted it clean out of the air. "It's not the same. I want mine." But the drone started sputtering under his weight, dipping toward the road while the duct tape started to peel. He looked around frantically. Watch out!" He started heading right towards me, and I sprinted so I wouldn't be the one to break his fall. He tumbled to the ground, and when I turned to get a closer look, I saw a corner of white wrapper poking out of his back pocket. "Check your back pocket," I shouted up at him. He reached back, yanked out a crushed empty Hershey's wrapper, and went still as the whole street fell silent. I ate it. Whoever ate it was screwed, and it was him. The drone gave one last sputter and pushed him straight into my bush, while his hand still gripped the empty wrapper. I was on a field trip with my class in the wilderness when I tripped on a rock and my phone fell out of my hand. I watched it tumble down the steep slope until it landed somewhere far below. My heart dropped. We weren't even supposed to have our phones out, but I snuck it in to take pictures. Up ahead, the group kept walking. I couldn't tell the chaperone I dropped it because she'd know I snuck my phone out and I'd get in huge trouble. But my mom would also kill me if I didn't come back with it. I spotted it down the slope, screen still lit, my own face glowing back at me. It looked close enough to reach, so I started climbing down. But the second I put my weight on the slope, my feet slid out from under me and I tumbled, slamming into rocks the whole way down. I finally caught myself, but I was scraped up and bleeding. My fall pushed dirt loose, sending my phone sliding even farther down. I looked up and my stomach turned. The trail was way above me now, and the group was gone. Nobody knew I was down here, and my only way out was to grab my phone and call for help. I scrambled toward it again. My fingers brushed against it, but my foot caught, and I went down hard. The phone slid the rest of the way down the mountain, the little glow shrinking until I couldn't see it at all. I laid there shaking, hurt, and alone, and this might have just cost me my life. I don't know how long I sat down there, freezing, but then I heard someone scream, "I think I see him!" I jumped up and saw a chaperone climbing up the slope toward me. I started sobbing as she pulled me up and wrapped me in her jacket. When we finally got back to the trail, I asked, "How did you know I was down here?" She reached into her pocket and pulled out my phone. The screen still lit with my face. "This slid all the way down to the trail. We saw your picture on it and realized you weren't with the group." She handed it back to me. The phone I almost died trying to save was the only reason they found me at all. "Also, we told your mom what happened. She says she's going to kill you." My girlfriend's son charged at me until I fell over on my stomach and jumped up and down on my back screaming, "Are you my new daddy?" I took a deep breath, and when his mom mouthed, "Sorry," I plastered on a fake smile and mouthed back, "It's all good." Because even though I knew she had a son, I didn't know he was crazy, and part of me didn't want this anymore. How was I supposed to tell her that? When it was time to sit down and eat the homemade lasagna I'd made, Ben twisted a loose bloody tooth out of his mouth and shoved it in my face. "This is for you. You can use it to get money from the tooth fairy." Turned to my girlfriend and asked if she wanted to go on vacation, just the two of us, because I signed up for a girlfriend, not a kid who used my leg as a jungle gym. But she smiled ear to ear. My son would love that. And a few weeks later, when we were at the the hotel, Ben was starfished across my chest, painfully plucking the individual hairs on my arm. His mom kissed his head and grabbed her purse. "You guys are so cute. I'm leaving to get ice. Enjoy your bonding time." I yanked myself out of bed and reached my hand out. Wait, but the door had already clicked shut behind her. I quickly grabbed his backpack and took out the drawing that was sticking out. "What's this, buddy?" I knew if I didn't make conversation with him, then he'd find a way to attack me again. He whispered, "Open it." I unfolded it, and at the top read the words, "Draw your family," and below, there were 3 stick figures. The one labeled Dad had 2 different colored eyes, and I knew it was supposed to be me, except he'd drawn it off to the side. I didn't want to draw us all together yet, in case you didn't actually become my new daddy. I read the drawing twice, and my heart broke. The whole time, Ben was just a child who wanted a family. I took out a green crayon and drew a circle around the 3 stick figures. "Look, we're all together." Ben saw what I'd done and charged at me until I fell over on the bed. But this time, I reached my arms out and hugged him back. I'd spent weeks trying to get him off me, but I wasn't putting him down now. The new Japanese kid tossed his apple in the air, drew a samurai sword from his backpack, and split it into 6 pieces before it hit the tray. Our whole table covered their mouths with their hands in shock. The kid caught a slice on the blade, ate it, and shrugged like he'd peeled a banana. I tapped him. "Dude, how did you do that?" He wiped the steel on his sleeve. "My family used to be samurais. My dad taught me a few tricks." I whispered, "Dude, you gotta hide it from the teachers, or the principal will have you expelled." He shrugged like he didn't care, and when someone threw a grape across the table, he split it mid-air without blinking an eye. People kept going, and someone threw a sandwich, which he cut into perfect triangle slices. A potato, he slices into fries, and just as someone was about to throw a birthday cake at him, the doors banged open, and Principal Collado shoved through the crowd, ripped the sword out of his hands, and held it over his head. "Arts and crafts stay in the art room." The kid rose out of his seat and shook his head. "Sir, this is not arts and crafts. This is a lifelong family custom." Collado laughed in his face. "Okay, karate boy, I've done sword fighting since before you were born." He pointed at the kid's chest. "Beat me in a one-on-one fight, and you keep your little tricks. Lose, which you will, and I will never hear about this again." The kid just nodded. They walked to the yard, and the entire school followed them outside. The kid unrolled a cloth from his bag and stood up with 2 wooden practice swords. He tossed one to Collado and kept the other. Collado came in swinging, wild looping cuts. "Come on, dance for me, karate boy." The kid snapped his sword up, blocked it clean, and didn't swing back. Collado swung harder and harder, but the kid kept dodging it. He barked, "Stay still!" and he reared back to bring his sword down overhead with both hands. The kid stepped in, caught the chop on his blade overhead, and cracked his own sword across Collado's wrists. The wooden sword dropped into the grass. The kid swept Collado's legs out and dropped him flat on his back, then set his blade against his collar. The yard went dead silent. The kid lifted it away and pulled Collado up by the hand. "That one was a trick my dad taught me." He pulled his sword from the dirt, slid it into his bag, and shrugged like none of it mattered. "And by the way, it's not Karate Boy, it's Samurai King." 400 kids lost their minds. A man's leg was smashed flat under a tire and bent the wrong way, and he screamed, "Doc, get this car off me, please." So 2 firefighters grabbed the car to lift it, but I yelled, "Stop, don't lift it." Everyone stared at me like I was crazy, but I felt the man's pulse. His leg's been crushed so long the muscle is dying and full of poison. If you lift the car, that poison rushes straight to his heart and he dies. But then a girl screamed, "Dad, please just lift it off him, please," while firefighters held her back. And I knew I couldn't let her dad die in the street. The man grabbed my arm. "Doc, just lift it please. My daughter needs me." But he'd be dead in seconds if I freed him. But the crowd heard him begging and ran to lift the car, and I quickly threw my arms out. "Touch that car and you kill him." Someone shouted, "You're lying about poison while he dies. Just lift the car." So I pulled a needle and a vial from my bag and filled it with medicine. The poison is called potassium. A little is normal, but too much makes the heart stop. The car is keeping the poison trapped in his leg, and that's keeping him alive. I stuck the needle in his arm and pushed the medicine. This keeps his heart safe from the poison. Just give it 1 minute to work, and then we lift. But the man cried, "I can't feel my leg." That's when the girl broke free and dropped beside him. "Daddy, don't leave me." But he choked out, "I love you, baby." The girl cried harder while the crowd waited for my signal. I watched the seconds tick by as he went pale and his eyes closed, but his heart was beating steady. 30 seconds, and the girl held his hand tighter. 20 seconds later, I waved everyone over. "Get ready, we're almost there." They gripped the edges, everyone sweating nervously, and the girl sobbing hard. 3, 2, 1, lift! The car came up and a fireman pulled the man free and loaded him onto a stretcher while the man sobbed, "Thank you, thank you." But later that night he woke up screaming, "My leg! Where's my leg?" I rushed into his room. The car crushed it too badly to save, but he grabbed at the empty spot screaming, "Give it back! This can't be real!" But then his daughter grabbed his face. "Daddy, it's okay. You're still here. That's all I wanted." And that calmed him down, so he wrapped his arms around her. He only got to do that because I never let them lift that car too soon. I gripped the railing of the cruise ship with shaking hands when I felt a cup of cold water hit the back of my head. I spun around and saw Gary pointing me out to the whole pool deck. "Everybody look, the kid who's scared of water came on a boat." I'd booked the cruise to finally beat my fear of deep water so bad I couldn't go swimming with friends. But 3 days in, gripping that rail was as close to getting in as I'd gotten. Gary figured that out and made me his entertainment. By the next morning, he had all his friends laughing at me every time I walked past. There he is, the biggest coward on the ship. But that afternoon, a little kid broke away from Gary's crowd and sat down next to me. My brother's a jerk. He reached into his pocket and held out a squishy yellow ball. "This is what I squeeze when I get scared. You can keep it. I'm Sam, by the way." I kept his ball in my pocket after that. But the next day, while I was at the rail, Gary grabbed my shoulders from behind. He shoved me forward until I tipped over it, then laughed and yanked me back. "You're such a coward, loser." He walked off while my teeth chattered in fear, and I squeezed Sam's ball just to breathe. That evening, I watched Gary leaning over Sam, yelling and pointing in my direction, and felt something terrible was coming. Then at night, Gary started flicking mashed potatoes at me across the deck, but Sam grabbed his arm. "Stop it, leave him alone." That's when Gary shoved him hard in the chest, and Sam hit the rail and flipped over the side. For 1 second, nobody moved, as Sam fell 60 feet and hit the water below. Gary lunged at the rail and froze, as his little brother splashed and screamed, "Help!" Gary got one black water I'd been terrified of. The cold hit me, and my arms seized up so hard I forgot how to move them. I gasped in a mouthful of seawater as the ship swam away, while Sam thrashed a few feet from me and kept going under. I swam toward him, and my lungs burned because I didn't know how to swim, and was sure I'd drown right next to him. But then Sam caught my shoulders and climbed, and I pulled his squishy yellow ball from my pocket and pressed it into his palm. "Squeeze it, Sam." His whole body relaxed as he did, and I held on to him, kicking just enough to keep our heads above the water I'd feared my whole life. A life ring finally slapped down beside us, and I cried as they pulled us on board. Sam hugged me, still holding his stress ball, while Gary stood frozen at the rail, his face red with embarrassment and fear. Turns out he was the coward who couldn't get in the ocean after all. I walked past my computer and saw my daughter furiously clicking the keyboard, her fingers slamming every key with power. I leaned over and realized she was typing a comment under a video of a 10-year-old boy playing video games. "I'm gonna punch you so hard you're going to cry. I know where you live." She pressed the enter key, but before I could tell her to stop, I saw something that made me grip my desk. She had posted the comment under my YouTube account, which had videos of me gaming on it. I immediately got her off the chair and opened my comment history, then started hysterically laughing because if I didn't, I would cry. She'd left hundreds of comments under videos of little kids. "I'm gonna beat you up. I'm coming for you. I'm hiding in your closet." She had accidentally made it look like me, a 34-year-old, was threatening kids online. I immediately went to start deleting the comments, but then my doorbell rang. 2 officers walked into my house. "We need to search your computer. We've heard suspicious activity from it." My legs froze as I led them to my computer, trying to explain everything. But the comment, "You look punchable," was already open under my account, making me look even worse. They glanced once at the screen and began putting cuffs on me. I screamed, "It wasn't me. My daughter left these comments." She came running and begged the officers to believe me, screaming it was her, but they kept walking me out. That's when I remembered that every time I logged into my PC, my webcam automatically started recording my face for my gaming videos. I begged the cops to check the footage, and they reluctantly pulled it up. We watched my daughter hop in my chair with a grin and type manically for hours at a time. The timestamps of the videos matched when the comments were left. The officers apologized and walked out, and as I started deleting everything, my daughter tapped my shoulder. "Was my trolling at least funny, Dad?" Me and my mom were scuba diving when a blue fish came up to me and flicked its tail like it wanted me to follow it. So I left the tourist group and went after it to see what it wanted to show me. It led me down past a wall of coral that opened up like a city, purple fans and orange tubes glowing. A shadow slid over me and I froze. A dolphin glided down beside the fish and slid under me, so I grabbed its fin and it carried me deeper into the dark, and the blue fish followed us the whole time. It slowed over a patch of empty sand where dozens of fish lay still. The blue fish swam around them in a circle extremely quickly, like it was waiting for me to swim down and pick one up. up. I swam down and reached for one with trembling hands. But when I held it, it didn't feel like a fish. It was hard, like a toy. And when I turned it over, a seam ran down its belly, stamped with tiny letters and a number. I pried it open, and behind the eye was a glass lens, and a red light blinked back at me. It was a camera. I held it up to show the blue fish. It flicked its tail and turned for the dark, like there was more to see. I was just about to follow when a hand closed on my arm and yanked me back. Mom dragged me up and tore my mask off the second we reached the surface. I was worried sick. You do not swim off like that, ever. I tried to tell her about the fish, but my hands were empty, and I knew she wouldn't believe me. The next day, I tried to convince my mom to go back and book another scuba dive, but the shop was shut. The boat's gone. The number on the door was crossed out in red. Now, when I get in the ocean, I watch the fish to see if any will flick its tail again, and I can't tell which ones are watching me back. My buddy Braden chucked his empty monster can at the cage and screamed, "Yo, you suck." The fighter froze mid-round. He turned, scanned the front rows, and his eyes stopped on Braden. I tried to grab him and stop him from saying anything else, but he shoved me off to give the MMA fighter the finger. I watched in horror as the fighter locked eyes with Braden and slowly climbed out of the cage to head straight towards us. He ignored me and pointed at the lumpy ear poking out. "Yo, those cauliflower ears look delicious. You get 'em from a boo-boo?" A guy 2 rows back howled, laughing. The fighter crossed the floor and stopped a foot from our seats. He tapped the lump on his ear with one finger and leaned in close to Braden. "No, I got this from 11 years of men trying to kill me in the cage." He smiled ear to ear. Somewhere in there I stopped feeling it. I stopped feeling pretty much anything. Braden opened his mouth to respond, and I completely tensed up, hoping with everything in me that he'd apologize. But he grinned. "So you're slow and deaf. Got it." The fighter waited for Braden to finish, then walked backwards to the cage and opened the latch. He swung it wide, held it open, and tilted his head, smiling. "You think I suck? Then get in. Show me how it's done." Braden couldn't make a sound. The fighter let a few seconds pass, then crouched and picked the empty monster can up off the floor. He crushed it flat in one fist and flicked it back over the rail. It rolled to a stop against Braden's shoe, and Braden didn't make another sound. The fighter laughed and gave Braden the finger. That's what I thought. I know a little beach when I see one. My little brother said, "I just got an iPhone 17 for $25, then held up a hexagon-shaped device with iPhone 17 written on the back. I crossed my arms and laughed. "Where did you get it?" And his eyes lit up. "China. Shipping only took 2 months." He plugged it into the charger, and I watched the battery go from 10 down to 5. My brother nearly fell from his chair. "Oh my God, it's so advanced it charges in reverse." I ruffled his hair and turned to leave, but then he said, "Wow, it's asking if I want to transfer the data from another phone to this one." Suddenly, I didn't feel my phone in my pocket, and when I turned back, I saw him plugging my phone into his Chinese iPhone. My heart dropped as I realized all my bank passwords and personal details were on it, and he was moving them to his iPhone. I lunged to grab it, but he blocked it with his body. "Stop being jealous of my new phone. Buy your own." I tried explaining I wasn't jealous, but he just kept smiling at the orange progress bar and shielding the phones. I watched helplessly as it went from 17 to 100 in one swoop. Transfer completed. Data stored in Chongqing headquarters lit up the screen, and my legs buckled. My brother was losing his mind about how fast Chinese technology is, but I was already logging into my computer, pure panic on my face. I clicked my mouse, and my fingers trembled as I typed in my password. 0 in my banking app. A $14,000 transfer made to iPhone International. My face drained of color, and I turned to stare at my brother clicking on his iPhone. "Its battery is at 120%. Isn't that cool?" I didn't say a word. I was thinking how to get away with permanently sending a 12-year-old to China. The school bus swerved so hard it threw me into the window. I jumped up and saw the dumbest kid in our school had both hands locked on the steering wheel, screaming at the old bus driver. "Give it to me. You always get to drive. It's my turn." The driver grabbed Dean's sleeve, his voice cracking. "Son, please, you're gonna kill us all." 2 jocks charged the front and wrapped him up around the chest, but that dumb was somehow stronger than them both. He shrugged them off like they were nothing and stamped on the gas. "My mom took my Xbox. I haven't played GTA in 3 days," he said, whipping us around the corner while we all screamed. "I need to dopamine max, or I'm gonna lose my mind." And up ahead, a wall of traffic filled the windshield. "I'm gonna drive straight through." I crawled up the aisle, grabbed the back of his seat, and leaned into his ear. "Bro, you're about to fail the GTA mission." His hands twitched on the wheel. "Checkpoint's right there. Pull over, or you lose all your progress. Everything. Gone." I was using his own logic against him. He gasped, "Dude, you're right." He slammed the brake with both feet, and the bus shrieked to a halt so close to a crossing minivan I could see the driver's face. Somebody pressed a phone into his hands, and he melted into the seat, thumbs already racing across a driving game. The old driver climbed back behind the wheel, hands shaking. Dean's eyes never left the screen. "Your turn, old man." My little brother and I were wrestling on the couch when I accidentally flipped him too hard, and he slammed straight onto the floor. He lay on the floor screaming, holding his arm, a red bruise already forming near his elbow. I was supposed to be watching him, and knew I was screwed, because my mom swore if she caught us wrestling again, she'd take everything I owned and beat my ah. My brother had tears running down his face as I checked the clock. She'd be home any minute, and I needed to fix this quickly. He screamed, "I'm telling Mom you pushed me. This is your fault. You wanted to wrestle again." I slapped my hand over his mouth. "Stop crying. If you stop, I'll give you my PS5, the one I saved 2 summers for." He went still. "For real?" "Yes." But the bruise was darkening fast, purple creeping across his elbow, and I knew my mom would notice it the second she walked in. So I looked it up on ChatGPT, and every result said, "Go to the ER immediately." My hand started shaking. "No way, I'm telling," he said. Mom's text lit up my screen. "She's almost home." "No, take my room too. Just stay quiet. I swear swear. So I went on Reddit, and some thread swore toothpaste and raw potato pulled a bruise out. So I packed his arm in paste and mummified it in a sock, but it bloated up yellow and lumpy, looking 10 times more broken than before. Then Mom's car beeped in the driveway. "Say nothing, and I'll buy you a Switch too," I begged, and the doorknob started to turn. My mom froze in the doorway, looking at the two of us, then at the lumpy yellow sock swallowing my brother's arm. What happened? My brother's lip trembled, but he didn't say a word. She took one look at the couch cushions on the floor, and her face went hard. "Were you two wrestling again?" I took a deep breath as she started unwrapping the sock, bracing like she'd find a bone sticking out. But underneath the paste was a bruise the size of a quarter, already fading. She turned to me slowly. "You did all of this over a small bruise? I'm taking your phone, your PS5, everything." I watched her walk straight to my room, grabbing my stuff. When my brother leaned over and whispered, "I didn't snitch, so I still get your room, your PS5, and you're buying me a Switch." My little sister threw down my Nintendo and ran to the window. "Look, there's a rainbow. We need to find the pot of gold at the end of it so we can be rich." I was about to tell her the truth, but she was so excited she was bouncing up and down, and I couldn't bring myself to break the news. Okay, let's check it out." She grabbed my hand and dragged me outside, and we climbed the fence, and Isabella marched straight through mud that swallowed her boots. Leprechauns only give gold to hard workers. It's the rules. I laughed nervously and had no idea how she was going to react when she found out there was no gold. "So what do you even want the money for?" She hugged her backpack tighter. "It's a secret." I rolled my eyes because I already knew it was probably a new vintage Barbie doll for her collection. Suddenly, I looked up and saw the rainbow was starting to fade. Isabella started running faster, and I knew if I didn't want her childhood to end, I had to think of something fast. I pulled out the $500 of emergency money out of my phone case and hid it underneath a rock. I waved frantically. "Isabella, over here. I found something. I think it's the gold." Isabella sprinted as fast as her little legs could carry her, and when she saw the money, she screamed so loud birds left the trees. I knew leprechauns were real. She held the dollar bills over her head while the last of the rainbow faded behind her. I thought it was finally over, but 3 days later she came to my room with a brand new Nintendo Switch 2. "I bought this for you with the gold." My jaw dropped in shock. "But you're Barbie." I thought. She frowned like I'd said something crazy. "I already have a bajillion of those. You've been saving for a new Switch for months." She bought me my dream with my own savings, and I'll make sure she'll never know it. My mom and I were driving home when the car flew off the road and headed straight for a tree. "Mom, stop!" She was stomping the brake pedal, but the car wasn't slowing down, and we slammed into the tree. Blood was pouring down her face from where her head hit the windshield, so I ripped off my shirt and pressed it against the gash until the paramedics came. They loaded her into the ambulance, and at the hospital, the doctors told me her condition was critical, and they didn't know if she'd make it. I loved my mom more than anything, and I fell apart right there with my head in my hands. Moments later, my siblings showed up, and I felt relieved thinking they were here to support us. But my sister walked up to me. "Who saved her?" I wiped my eyes. I did. Instead of thanking me, her face twisted in anger. "Why didn't you just let her die?" I froze.